joining us now here on a massive historic day for the Cowboys. Zack Martin's retirement, Dak Prescott's contract restructured, Jerry and Steve both talking about off-season moves for this team, and Jon Machota of The Athletic joins us now to talk more about this. Good afternoon, Jon. How the heck are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's great to have you. Now, did I see a Cameron Indoor here this week taking in some ACC basketball? Was that on Twitter?
That is correct. Yeah, I've been going out to Duke for a trip once a year now for the last 5 years. So no, it's been great. Nothing like it.
Yeah, legendary seats that looked like you had there. What were you, like third row? Like that?
Yeah. I've kind of developed a hookup over there over the years. A good friend of mine. So yeah, no, he hooks it up for one game a year. And I was going to go a little bit earlier in the season, but the Cowboys had a coaching change and some other stuff, and the combine gets in the way. And so that was the last home game of the year. So I got it right down to the very end.
Well, that was a clean shot of Cooper Flagg's pull-up, Jay, man, and your video skills over the years, legendary. I think they translate well to hoop, too.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I just think I'm just a high-volume shooter. You take a lot of videos and you post the best one.
So the Cowboys opened $55 million in cap space, Jon, and Jerry says he doesn't look at free agency as a way of filling voids on the roster. How's all that make sense? What are they going to do with that money?
I know, when you see that, you're thinking, all right, maybe they will make a move for a big name player. Maybe they are a player in this Myles Garrett sweepstakes. No, I think that's more for. I do think that they'll add some pieces in free agency, but I don't think it's going to be those day 1, 2, or 3 guys. They still need help at defensive tackle. There's, Jerry will say that they don't have a lot of voids that they need to fill and that they can handle most of it in the draft, but I think he knows, and he's just saying that right now, that there are some things that they have to do in free agency. But with that, freeing up that money, I think that puts you in good spots. Obviously, bring back like they did Osa. I think the same happens with Jordan Lewis, probably Rico Dowdle, and maybe a few others. And so maybe Chauncey Golston or someone like that. And so I think that's what it is, more so than making a big move like folks are hoping for. Because so we talked to Jerry for about 10 minutes, and after he was done, we talked to Steven for another 5 to 10 minutes. And it was specifically asked to Steven about the idea of possibly trading a high pick for a proven veteran player. And he just did not sound like he had any interest in that at all. And so basically that would be like right now today, talking about DK Metcalf or Myles Garrett and stuff. Mm-hmm. They just do not sound like they're interested in that, because it's not only do you have to give up that high pick, whatever it's in this draft or the next, but then you also have to pay that player too. And I don't get the sense that they're going to be a big player for paying guys. Now, what could be possible are trades like the Gilmore, like the Brandon Cooks trades in the past, where those are lower level 1-year deals. The team that's trading them takes on some of the money. That's the type of stuff that I think that their offseason will look more like 2 years ago, but it's not going to look like an Eagles offseason.
Did you get any more insight on the Micah contract extension conversations? You just had, of course, the Max Crosby deal today, which I don't know. Maybe that adds a little bit more clarity for them.
Yeah, it should. Steven said at the Combine that there aren't as many moving parts with the, that pass rusher spot as there were, last year dealing with CD's contract and some of those, Jefferson and Chase and some of those pieces. So, both sides sound like that, some can get done, but I'll believe it when I see it, because while Micah has said, I don't need to be the highest paid, defensive player, highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, with what he's done and the resume he has and the agent he has, I find it hard to believe that he's not going to want to be in that category. And so that category is going to probably be certainly going to be north of what Max Crosby just got. So I'm thinking $40 million range. And, when Jerry was talking about today, he same as with Dak and CD contracts, he talks about the number of years and things like that. I think it probably makes sense. It would be a 4-year deal, so 4 for $40 per year. It seems like you could get that done with that, but maybe Micah's side, was looking for a little bit more than that. I don't know, but Steven said they had preliminary talks and maybe something happens, but nothing has changed for me. I still think it doesn't get done until possibly July.
Yeah, I was going to ask you there, Jon. Are we in a point now where players are starting to put pressure on the front office? And I say that because of what CD said yesterday. I can't do this. I can't do this alone. And then Micah, like, listen, hey, let's get this started. Are we starting to see more players just kind of, take and I'm not saying take a shot at the front office, but kind of like, listen, let's get a little motivated here. Let's get stuff done.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's any question they feel that way. I mean, this is a generation of player that knows more than ever before, just because, let's be honest, we all know more than we've ever known before when it comes to a lot of this stuff because of social media. I mean, there's not the mystery that you would have had 20, 30 years ago of like you would know your team, but would you really know what was going on with the Broncos? I mean, were you getting the local Denver paper mailed to your house? Like all you were getting was some of the stuff that was on ESPN and things like that. Nowadays, these guys know everything. They see how aggressive.
Well, they interview each other. They're on each other's podcasts and stuff like that.
That too. Yeah. That too. So yeah, absolutely they are. But the thing is, though, is that I just don't get. Yeah, Jerry and Steven and the front office obviously hear that stuff, but I don't think that is the type of thing that would get them to move away from whatever their plan is. And especially when you talk about a guy like CD, well, he just got paid, or Dak, it was gotten paid. Like, they're not really that worried about those things because those guys are under contract. They're not going anywhere. But, yeah, you certainly listen to that. And that's, if you're a fan of the Cowboys, you should like seeing that so that it isn't just, hey, we're just fine with status quo. The fans obviously want more from the organization. It sounds like the players do too.
What do you think's the most amount of money they would spend on an outside guy? Is it around that 10 or 12 million bucks that like Gilmore and Cooks were getting?
I do. That's exactly what I think it is. But I mean, like I'll be honest. I thought 20 for Osa was a little bit above what I thought they would go. But obviously, the D tackle position, the hole that they had there, and what they would have without Osa, it had to get done. But yeah, I would be surprised if it was more than like, a $15 million. Now that's not to say that you couldn't do a trade for a team. Let's say a guy is making 20 some, but that team takes on some of it. But it's just like, especially at when these trades are talked about and these key players come out, oftentimes it's edge rushers, oftentimes it's wide receivers, and they're going to pay probably their edge rusher $40 million a year. We'll ballpark it at, and they're paying their top receiver at 34, and they're paying their quarterback at 60. And so like that wide receiver DN, like I just don't see them being a major player on someone who like a DK Metcalf who wants to get traded and then a new contract, like Myles Garrett who wants to get traded and a new contract. Like they're just not going to be a player for someone like that. And hey, I would love to give you names right now, but I don't know 2 days before the Gilmore or 2 days before the Cooks deal got done that anybody had that on their, bingo card. And so it just does seem like that they are open to that. I mean, I specifically asked Steven about that today, and he said that it isn't just like that. I asked him about the Cooks deal and the Gilmore deal, if that was just, hey, was that just two that fell in your lap? And he's like, no, we have, we have calls out there. People know that, we're open for business, but it has to be something obviously that's going to fit in, into their plan.
We went through your article on The Athletic about the combine takeaways on Monday, and I think one of the ones that stood out was, of course, the Jeanty conversation at 12. Now, I don't know that he's even going to be there at 12, but what was some of the perspective you were able to gain for running back? Like, if Jeanty's there, do you think that they just don't take him at all?
I think that that's a possibility, and I guess where I was coming from with that, and I was telling Brian this earlier today, if you told me like going into the combine, the day of the Sunday I flew in, and then comparing it to the way I felt on the Saturday that I flew out, I would have said that would have been the thing that stood out to me most of like how much I had changed. I thought for sure if Jeanty was there at 12, no doubt they would take him. And I'm not saying that he isn't still a possibility. I mean, they're going to obviously Dallas Day and he can be a formal whatever. Like they're going to have to do all the due diligence on Ashton Jeanty, and hey, maybe he blows them away in an interview. Maybe who knows what happens. Maybe they add a player or two in free agency, whatever. But I came away thinking that they look at this as a very deep running back class, and that at 12, that they could possibly do something more at another position. That let's say like a defensive end or a defensive tackle or a wide receiver or corner. That like you're not going to find anything close after 12, if you were to do that in the second, third round, as you could find a running back where you're like, it's not Ashton Jeanty, but maybe we pair this second round pick with Rico, and we're way better off than we were last year, certainly, and maybe we're back to where we were when we had, Pollard. And so I just think that there's other areas that could potentially fall to them. Wide receiver stands out to me, D tackle, defensive end, and cornerback. Those four right there are just higher on the list than I would have had going into the combine. I thought for sure that Jeanty would be the one-all, be-all, but I just think that those other positions are going to be heavily in play there, including, and I think even with the Osa thing, people might think defensive tackle is off the board. I do not think that at all. I think defensive tackle could be taken there as well.
Hey, John, is there a side of you that believes that maybe they're hoping that Jeanty's gone before they pick? That takes the pressure off them for that?
It could be. It's like that whole thing when you have a quarterback that you love to see all the quarterbacks go and push good players to you.
Sure.
And so, that could certainly be the case. That, and I'm not saying this from a perspective of, they didn't get a great production on a second contract from Zeke, so are you just doing this for 5 years and run them into the ground? It's not even really that. It's more the you might be able to find a solid value there in the second or third round, whereas what kind of D end or D tackle or wide receiver are you finding in the second and third round compared to whatever you think of a guy that's possibly there at 12? And to be honest with you, that's, to me, is when the Cowboys have drafted their best, when they've had a top 15, 20 pick in each round, and when they've drafted for best player available, as opposed to being, we need a running back, so we got to get Jeanty if he's there at 12. Hey, if it's a D end or a defensive tackle, and maybe that's not as big of a need as running back is in the moment, I wouldn't count that out.
It's Jon Machota of The Athletic here with you on The Fan. Just a quick backstory, John. I'm whipping the hell out of these guys with offensive line talk. It's almost every hour. But let me ask you this. If you ran a team, have you seen enough from Guyton that you want to give him another season and let him try to get more experience and get better? Or with Dak at this stage in his career and Lamb on the team, do you need to make sure you have better blindside protection?
I mean, it could definitely be better, but I don't feel the way, like, with Guyton, I'm not as down on him as a lot of other people are. And then even just being at the combine, things you hear about how he's been working this offseason, I don't get the sense from the team that they're down on him either. I know fans are, especially with him being a first-round pick and not having the same success as some of their previous offensive line first-round picks. But I don't get the sense from them that they're ready to move away from that. I mean, maybe a guard at 12, maybe then that's your starting right guard. Potentially you upgrade there. But yeah, I mean, they say, from what I'm hearing right now, I don't think they would be trying to take an offensive tackle at 12. But obviously, if they did, that wouldn't be to try and get someone to back up. And so, where would you be putting that person? You'd be starting them somewhere. But I just don't get I didn't get the sense from anything or anybody I talked to in Indy that they're ready to move away from Tyler Guyton yet.
Do you think, speaking of right guard, and Zack Martin had his retirement pressure today, which you were at, that position could be in play there at 12? Maybe it's a Tyler Booker from Alabama, or is Brock Hoffman the guy that they're going to rock with?
Well, I mean, Brock Hoffman as of right now, for sure. But I think that if they see something that, let's be honest, you're taking a guard at 12, you're hoping to get another Tyler Smith.
Right.
And if you have a Tyler Smith at right guard and a Tyler Smith at left guard, that probably helps your tackles a little bit, because I know that they feel good about BB. And again, that was another one out at the combine. It just does not sound like they're that interested in moving BB, including the fact that they have his college coach as the offensive line coach in the mix as well. It seems like they really like what he did last year and the growth he can make there. So that's why I kind of just am penciling in for those starters. Right guard is the one that could potentially change. And then if that happens, then you have Hoffman, who can be he could be your guard to back up either spot, or he can be your backup center. And then all of a sudden you have a little bit of depth there on an offensive line that, let's just be honest, that's one of their downfalls these last few years, that they just haven't been able to keep that same five healthy all season.
Jon Machota, Athletic, thank you so much, sir. We'll see you soon.
Absolutely, guys. Take it easy.